Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Let me just say very briefly what an honor it is to have you here with us today. On behalf of Concordia and everyone who works with us and all of our members, we could not be more happy to have you. We just thought, if it was okay with you, that we'd ask you a few questions that you could be a little, you could expand a little bit about what you talked about. And so, I guess the first question is: there's a lot of debate in the United States today about the European Union. It seems the current U.S. administration isn't too much in favor of dealing with multilateral institutions. And I guess from your perspective, why is the European Union important to the United States?
Well, to reiterate what I said in my opening comments, European stability is essential for American security. And quite frankly, it's the platform on which we build our ability to conduct business around the world. It is the place that is required for us to have a stable relationship. And the EU, when the Maastricht Treaty was being debated and finally voted on, as George remember, there were some folks in the United States who viewed it as somehow of an economic threat. I, from the beginning, thought it was overwhelmingly in the U.S. interest to have a powerful, united Europe that worked out the rules of the road and established institutions that were going to make it more difficult for the abuse of power to occur, because that's what institutions basically are designed to do. And, we've concluded, my country has concluded, and I think you have as well, that our best bet for peace and security are the establishment of democracies. Democracies do not exist on the barren soil of economic chaos. There needs to be economic growth. There needs to be economic opportunity. Otherwise, democracies are not sustained and do not flourish. And so it seems to me and to most of us that a strong EU that is able to work its way through some of the changes that are taking place in the world as a consequence of globalization, what I call the fourth industrial revolution that's taking place with not just globalization, but Moore's law, the whole incredible increase in digitalization, artificial intelligence. All those things are creating, as they have in the past when we've gone through previous revolutions like economic revolutions, they're creating anxiety. And I have no doubt that the institutional structure of the EU is able to accommodate that if they put their mind to it. And so it gets down to a basic proposition, and the way I say it at home is democracies are our best bet for security. Economic stability and growth is necessary for democracies to flourish. That's why it's overwhelmingly in the interest of the United States for the EU to flourish and to remain and be sustained.
Mr. Vice President, I must say you are an incredible, you always bring a wonderful, optimistic message in your campaigns and in your political leadership. But as a grandparent, what concerns you the most about the future of the United States?
Well, the two things that concern me the most are, I guess one overall concern is I wish the heck we would stop walking around with our head down. We are better positioned than any nation in the world to lead the 21st century by a factor of I don't know how much. I mean, there is not another country in the world that is in a position that we are to be able to be a positive influence, not only at home, but around the world. We are energy independent. We're in a position where we have the most agile venture capitalists in the world. We have the greatest research institutions in the world because of a guy named Dwight Eisenhower. We have more great research institutions, universities, than all the rest of the world combined. American workers are 3 times as productive as workers in Asia. I mean, there isn't any reason why the United States should not be up and not just walking, but marching, moving, and being a positive force around the world. The two things that concern me most, beyond the generic concern of the pessimism that seems to be prevailing now, is one, global warming. My grandchildren, when we came into office, Majority Leader George Mitchell, my great friend, is here. The first thing we got from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, George, was a report from our military. The greatest danger to American physical security was global warming. The greatest danger to our physical security. Because if sea levels rise 2 feet, tens of millions of people will be displaced. That causes wars. You saw a small sample of it in Darfur. You saw a sample of what happens when there is competition over what little arable land is left. And every single difference that exists among the people in the region becomes exacerbated. And so it is overwhelmingly in the interest of my grandchildren, notwithstanding what some of the folks in this administration think, to deal with global warming. And I might note parenthetically, although the president has announced we are withdrawing from Paris, a number of governors and mayors are personally engaging the United Nations directly to say, not us. We're not leaving. The vast majority of the American people do not agree with the decision the president has made. You have major states like California and New York and my state, all across America, saying, we will maintain the standards we committed to in our states. And so I don't want you all thinking that somehow the American people have had a terrible epiphany here. The truth of the matter is that the American people strongly support. Over 59% thought the president's decision was a serious mistake. The next thing that bothers me is this whole notion of whether or not we are going to be able to deal with this tremendous change that's taking place in the world in terms of the way the economies are conducted. There's an awful lot of people out there who are frightened. Hard-working people in Greece and the United States who look at themselves and wonder whether or not they are going to have a place in this economy at all. They have jobs now, but they look and see digitalization fundamentally changing the work that they do. Just in the United States in the last year, we have lost over 87,000 sales jobs in the United States. Retailers are closing. Why? Because the change in the nature of how people purchase things. Amazon, they can go on Amazon. They don't go into the mall anymore. Great malls are closing down. We have to adjust. We've adjusted in the past. Civilization has adjusted. We had Luddites back in the 1830s wandering the Midlands of England, smashing the looms because the culture as well as the economy was changing so drastically. But we adapted. Governments are always a half a generation behind in that case. We have to adapt. We have to respond to the legitimate concerns of these people, but we can do it without walking away from the idea of global trade and globalization. It can be compensated for in each of our countries to be able to, for example, does anybody in Greece think that well, I'll speak for the United States, that 12 years of education is sufficient in the 21st century? What are we doing? We have the capacity to provide 14, 16 years of free education like we did the first 12 in the United States of America without punishing anyone and without making any substantial change in the tax structure. It's within our power to do it. It has to be done. There are things that are in our wheelhouse that we can do to deal with these changes that allow us to be in a much stronger position than we are today. But don't underestimate why people are upset. They're upset because they look at their future, if they're in their 40s, and wondering whether or not the job they do now will be even available in the next 2, 3, 5 years. And we should respond to it. That's what this organization, that's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing in the alliance. How do we compensate for the dislocations that occur as a consequence of the enormous progress? You all know about Moore's Law. It continues to be sustained. A lot of change is going to happen, but a lot of good is going to happen. We're going to cure cancer. We're going to be flying subsonically at 22,000 miles an hour in the next 10 years. We can now do 1,000,000 billion calculations per second, and we'll soon be doing out of our Department of Energy 1 billion calculations per second, revolutionizing what we're able to do. But we have to adjust to it and acknowledge people's fears.
Switching gears a little bit, Mike talked a little bit in his intro about Joe Bidenopoulos, your alter ego. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your history with this country, with the Greek community in the U.S., and why you feel such an affinity there.
Well, you know, it's I received a scholastic education. If His All Holiness forgive me, I'm a Roman Catholic. And Aquinas and Augustine looked to Aristotle and Plato and natural law and a whole range of things. Rather than get into all that, it was subconscious. For me, there was no daylight between the way I was educated politically and academically and my religious beliefs. They fit. You know, it was a simple proposition that, you know, was here in this city, that the notion that individuals had the capacity to maintain and provide for their own security, that they could make their own decisions, that there'd be government of the people, by the people, for the, I mean, it's written into everything. You know, in the United States of America, we often stand up on the 4th of July, our Independence Day, and talk about, we hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain. The truth is, whether you are a naturalized American citizen or native-born American citizen, that is internalized. It's stamped into the DNA of Americans. It comes from here. It comes from here. It is totally consistent. And then I got to the United States Senate, and I met John Bradmus and Paul Sarbanes, and that was the end of it. I was, they got me in real trouble. But it's wonderful when we had a friend named Lawton Childs, who used an expression. He was a senator from Florida. He was so happy about a vote that didn't seem to matter much at all when I was a freshman senator. And I turned and I said, Lawton, why are you so excited? I sat next to him in the Senate. He said, Joe, it's so seldom in American politics that conscience and convenience cross paths. When it does, you should celebrate. Well, the good thing about our relationship with Greece is conscience and convenience cross paths. And everything that I've done academically and politically in the United States Senate has had some focus relative to this country and to Cyprus. And that's how I got so engaged. And you Greeks are dangerous. You crawl into someone's heart and you end up owning it. That's a dangerous proposition.
Last one. Last one.
What do you miss most about being vice president?
Air Force Two.
What do you miss least?
You all think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Although the plane you gave me to get here, it's not bad. You know, I guess there are things I should say that I didn't like about the vice presidency, but it was the honor of my life. When Barack asked me to join him, to be considered to join him, I told him no, I did not want to be vice president because I'm a student of the presidency and the vice presidency. And there is absolutely no power in the vice presidency. None, zero. And I'm not being, but constitutionally there's none. You are spare part in waiting, and you get to break a tie vote. But the president asked me, I asked him why he wanted me to participate with him. He said he wanted me to help him govern. And I asked, he said, do I have any requests? I said, just one, that I get to be the last person in the room, not figuratively, literally, on every decision. Would I be the last person he spoke to before he made the decision? He kept that commitment. He's never once broken that commitment. And he's given me, and all power of the vice presidency is reflective. And the job of the presidency of the United States is so vast now, it's impossible for one man or one woman to do it all. And the one thing about Barack was I had his trust and his faith, and he'd give me major assignments and never, ever question. I would just do it. The Recovery Act, almost $1 trillion. The dealing with the Western Hemisphere, dealing with Ukraine. I was the one who did it, and he had faith in me to do it. And the joke used to be, they said, well, get Joe to do such and such. And his comment would always be, I don't do Joe's schedule, and he doesn't do mine. It was a great honor to work with him. He's a man of enormous integrity, enormous integrity. And he kept his word, and I hope I kept my end of the bargain as well. So I miss seeing him every day.
And just one last question. Maybe you can briefly tell us about your new center and what you hope to accomplish. You spoke a little bit about it in the speech. But.
Well, you know, I was like, I see some former elected officials here. We all go through a period of what are we going to do now? From the time I have been 26 years old, every morning I've gotten up, I've gotten a little card put in my hand, and I was working on some particular subject that I cared about. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, it's a lucky person who gets up in the morning, puts both feet in the floor, knows what he's about to do, and thinks it still matters. Well, I think what I was doing the last 40 years really matters. And I was given an opportunity to, by 2 universities to bring along, and I have about $7 million worth of personal staff now. The Biden Center at Penn, I have some of the most, well, had I run and won, the very people I would ask to run the government in the foreign policy side are with me. Tony Blinken, just a lot of really fine people were working with me at Penn. And including one who's with me today. And then at the University of Delaware, they agreed to set up to rename their School of Public Policy after me and gave me $2.5 million worth of staff to work on subjects I care about, income inequity and middle-class issues. And then we set up a Biden Foundation that has a significant endowment to work on issues that I care about relating to violence against women and basically human rights issues, LGBT issues and other issues relating to the dignity of other people. And when the Cancer Moonshot initiative, the president asked me to head, came to an end, a group of 4 Nobel laureates and another 27, 28 leaders in the cancer field from the major cancer institutes came to me and asked me whether I'd continue the effort. It turns out the only thing I'm able to do really is convene and, quite frankly, shame. Cancer specialists don't share very well. And it's the way the institutions were set up in the beginning. So I'm doing that, and I think we're gonna raise somewhere between $20 and $25 million quickly to keep that going. So I'm able to do the things I cared about. And I've essentially taken the vice president's office and the people I work with out into the private sector to continue to work on the things I cared about before. And I find it rewarding, but it's the kind of thing you're doing. You're doing it more effectively. You're doing it in a way that continues to work on maintaining this, at Penn specifically, the banner in which I travel around the world these days is designed to how do you maintain this liberal world order adjusting to the fundamental changes that have taken place economically around the world without jettisoning the very institutions that were set up. When you think about it, what were all the institutions that came after World War II, from NATO to Bretton Woods to every major institution? They're all designed to limit the possibility of the abuse of power. That's what they're all about. That's why Mr. Putin is working so very hard to destroy them. That's why Russia is working so very hard now in Europe to undermine those very institutions, which are designed to keep the powerful from abusing power. That's what it's about. That's what that liberal world order, when you cut it down to the quick, that's what it was all about, from NATO to the EU across the board. And it's really important, all of you leaders out there, it's really important, in my humble opinion, that we fight like hell to sustain that order and adjust to the fundamental changes that are taking place in the economy within the context and the confines of those institutional structures that are designed to prevent the abuse of power. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.